First, March has arrived, which means spring is closer, and so is the return of baseball. Spring training is already well underway. Its rituals a reminder that there is something timeless about our national pastime. And as 207's Don Kerrigan tells us, part of the timelessness of the game is that you're never too old to pick up a ball.
For his whole life, Bud Elwin has loved baseball.
I lived in the city, and within 100 yards of my house, I had 12 friends. And we had a small playground there. So early in the morning, we're playing ball. And then late at night after supper, we're playing stickball on the street. We're always playing ball.
And at age 83, he's still playing. In January, Bud spent a week in Florida at Red Sox Fantasy Camp for the 4th time.
I just love it. I just love to do something that I've done before, and I know that I'm not going to be as good as I was before. But I like the team sportsmanship, the camaraderie.
Bud says Fantasy Camp is a week-long chance to be immersed in Red Sox baseball, even using the same field in Florida where the Sox do spring training, and with 24 former Red Sox players as coaches.
Those were my coaches, Alan Emery and Oil Can Boyd.
And, of course, to play ball. 120 people at camp, divided into 10 teams, playing 2 games a day, every day for a week.
And then the last day, the Saturday, we play against the ex-Red Sox. Each team gets to play 3 innings against them. And believe me, they give us no break.
Come on, Bud.
He said those pitches came almost too fast.
All right, now I know when the ball's up here, that's when I'm supposed to concentrate on it as he's coming to release it. All right, I would see it leave there, and the next thing I heard, it hit the glove. The catcher behind me.
Bud had been to 3 other fantasy camps in 2010, 11, and 12, and those led to the discovery of a book, which rekindled his reverence for the great Ted Williams.
So then I started reading books. I've read 47 books about him.
That's an interesting statistic. Just that fact that there's 47 books written about Ted Williams says something about it.
There's probably more.
He was possibly baseball's all-time greatest hitter. Williams, who grew up in San Diego, became forever part of Boston sports history. Bud says he and his friends idolized Williams as kids.
Well, we would take the streetcar and we'd get to Fenway Park at 9 o'clock. 50 cents was the ticket. And there were no reserved seats in the bleachers of those days. And so we'd be in the first row, and Ted was right down there because we'd sit right in that corner.
The Williams legend made even larger by his military service as a pilot in World War II, then called back for Korea.
He learned to land on an aircraft carrier, and then he went to Korea and flew 39 missions.
Part of the display beside the fantasy uniforms on Bud's wall is a coat he made to honor Ted Williams.
And then his lifetime batting average was .344. Babe Ruth was .342, Lou Gehrig was .340, and Joe DiMaggio was .326. He was .344.
Bud still does presentations for groups about Williams and wears Teddy Ballgame's old number 9 on his fantasy camp uniform. He also proudly promotes a baseball innovation inspired by Williams long after he retired, the axe handle bat.
How it happened was Ted Williams lived in Vermont, and he was chopping down trees on his property, and he said, "Ooh, that handle feels good." He just mentioned that, and he put it in one of his books.
Decades later, he says, a company read the book and began making bats with the knob on the end like an axe instead of round. Bud says it's easier to swing the bat level, and that more than 300 major leaguers now use them. Bud even proclaims it on his license plate, Axe Bat. He'd like to do some work now with high school teams, but Bud said this year was his final fantasy camp. There is, however, one more game to play. It's the final part of the camp, this September at Fenway Park.
It's so special to step across that white line when you go onto the field.
And Bud played at Fenway in his other fantasy camp years too, and says his batting average there is .333. Not quite as good as Ted Williams, of course, but there was another thrill.
And I've played first base, second base, I played left field. I had to play left field, so I stood where Ted Williams stood.
He'll be there again this fall. Look for the guy wearing the number 9, swinging the axe-handled bat. Still the kid who always loved the game, still playing after all these years.
On the table next to Bud as he talked with Don was a small trophy. It's the Fantasy Camp Coaches Award. It was given to him at the end of this year's camp for his enthusiasm and leadership. And by the way, Bud says he took 10 of those axe-handle bats with him to Fantasy Camp, used one, and sold the other 9 to eager players.